people, it's your TTA Pro, Mr. O, back with another episode. Today we're going to solve the May 2023 Digital SAT test. Keep in mind, these are real questions, so I want you guys to take advantage of your opportunity. Let's begin. So we're going to solve, or I'm going to work through these as if I'm solving them in real life. All right, question number one. It's a domain two question, it's a vocabulary question. So, one thing we need to do is understand context. Another thing we need to do is actually understand the meanings of words. So, these things will help us a lot when answering this type of question. Okay, we're talking about here the conductor. He was on his tiptoe in an effort to keep one hand on the signal rope. He's craning his neck in vain. That means he's turning his neck, and for with very weak results. He was dissatisfied. The motorman chafed in his box, thinking of the drudging lot of the laboring man. So all of these are very negative connotation words. These words have lots of negative connotations. We're discussing here the effort, the craning of the neck, in vain, dissatisfied, the drudging lot, depressing lot of men. So he registered discontent. So discontent means unhappiness, right? It means unhappiness. So he registered his unhappiness. So enrolled means to subscribe or sign up. Well, no, he valued discontent. He valued his unhappiness. He saw it as value. Also, no, disregarded means to ignore. So he ignored it. No, he's not happy with the situation. We could say he displayed the discontent, which is the unhappiness, which could be a frowning face, a sad face, whatever. Question number two. Okay, so here in this question, we're talking about the massive mosque that can hold 200,000 people. So it is a blank sight to behold. So we're emphasizing in the text the size, the mass of the mosque. So what kind of sight would it be? Would it be an idealized sight? Idealized means something like a perfect sight or something you imagine to be as perfect as possible. But I mean, how is it an idealized site? An intricate site, this means it is a complex site. Again, what makes it complex? The design? I mean, we don't know. Imposing means very large, intimidating, something that cannot be unseen or ignored. Is this an imposing site? Well, it's a massive mosque that takes 200,000 people. So this indicates it is super duper large. So I would definitely say imposing. Illusory, it's related to the word illusion, which means something that is not real, but it's not really illusory, is it? So we're going to describe it as an imposing site. Question number three. Okay, so what we want to say here that the word specific, this is the word that I want. And how did I get this? So although fewer companies trade their stocks on the Tehran Stock Exchange than on other stock exchanges, the Tehran Stock Exchange has the advantage of focusing on local companies. So if your stock exchange is focusing on local companies, and it's only local companies, so therefore it should reflect the economic stances that are specific to that country because there are no other companies there. This sensitivity to unique, rapidly evolving local conditions benefits the company's investors alike. So it's definitely not irrelevant. Irrelevant means not related to or unrelated. So it's definitely not irrelevant. Prohibitive means restricted, but is it restricted though? We're not restricted by anything. Distinctive to means a clear difference. It means something like unique or something like specific. Answer C. Unchanging in, again, I mean, why would the circumstances be unchanging when the next sentence literally tells you rapidly evolving local conditions. So it's obviously not going to be unchanging. The best answer here is distinctive. So this is the vocabulary. Let's go to the reading. Which choice describes the function of the underlying portion? So here's the thing with these types of questions. Well, number one, we have to read the full text, and then we have to at least understand the main idea of the text. Number two, then we look at the function of this sentence. Now remember, my answer has to be to the sentence. It can't be with anything else, or it can't be related to anything else. Okay, what do I mean? Let's check this out first. Lots of names here. So in the study, I mentally, or you should mentally ignore these names, right? Unless you have multiple values to keep track of. Okay, so in the study, they surveyed, people were surveyed about parks in their cities. 44%. Okay, so 44% in Caracas use city parks, while in Fortaleza, 35.7% use city parks. It may be tempting to assume the difference is due to different levels of access to parks. Interesting. So notice here, it may be tempting. So when you see this phrase, this indicates a seductive idea, right? When you're tempted by an idea, then it's probably a wrong idea because tempted means temptation, desire. So it sounds like, hey, the author's supporting it. No, it's a tempting idea. So when he's telling you it's a tempting idea, again, it indicates that it is an incorrect idea. And then we have however, right? A shift, a contrast in ideas. Greater proximity alone can't explain the difference in park use. Okay, so one more time. So here we're discussing park use, right? And how one group of people go to the park more often than another group of people. Then the author says, well, it may be tempting that, hey, it's because access to parks. Maybe tempting to blame the access to parks. However, the author then says that's not true. There are other factors. So greater proximity can't explain the difference in park use. So idea number one, we're talking about study results. Idea number two, the tempting idea. Idea number three, how the idea is wrong. Okay, so what is the function of this underlined sentence? It introduces a counterexample. This sentence does not have a counterexample. There is no counterexample in this sentence. Okay, the sentence telling you may be tempting for a certain idea. So remember when I told you when we're looking at answers, it must reflect the underlying portion. It provides context. Okay, so context would mean background information. So it provides context to help understand the scope of the research survey, but we don't have any context here, nor do we discuss the scope of the survey. The scope indicates the size of the survey. Answer C marks a shift from a discussion. So it does mark a shift. I like this answer so far of the researcher's conclusion to a discussion of their methods. But no, we're not discussing methods, right? We're discussing, well, why the tempting idea is wrong. It presents a potential explanation for the team's findings that the text goes on to refute. So let me break this down for you. It presents a potential explanation, and it may be tempting. This is the potential explanation to assume, right? This is the potential explanation. The difference is due to different levels of park access. So this is the potential explanation, right? That's what it does. That the text goes on, so that means afterwards to refute. Is it refuted? Yes, right? However, since this means this, it's not about proximity. It's actually about other things. So we're going to go with answer D. Next one, number 5. Okay, so Chekhov portrays the professor as being someone adjusting to living at a country state, as is evident one. So we need proof, or we need evidence to show us that the professor is still adjusting to country life. Okay. I cannot, I find, dispense with the help of well informed people, but where does it show us that he's adjusting to country life or is adjusting to his new environment? So I wouldn't say answer A. B, Again, where does it show us here? It just talks about Vanya and how he doesn't want to be alone with him. It doesn't say anything about adjusting to country life. C, okay, so definitely the answer is C, because it tells us what he's used to. I'm used to the library and the lecture hall and the esteem of my colleagues. Now, so this is the adjustment. I find myself plunged into this wilderness, condemned to see the same stupid people from morning till night and listen to their futile conversations. This shows us he's still adjusting, because adjusting indicates he's not used to it. Right? He's still trying to get around and understand what's happening. So answer C is a good answer. Enter D shows ignorance about a certain subject, not necessarily adjusting to a new environment. Question number 6. The purpose of the text. Another domain 2 question. And a purpose of the text, usually you would find the main idea. And the main idea in fictional texts are related to the character plus traits or events or relationships. It's one of those three things: traits, events, or relationships. Okay, so we love the sun. This is what he's telling us. We love the sun. We love the light. This is why we live in towns and cities. This is why we're always around in the sunlight in daytime. Nature's alive and busy. We like the open hillsides. But, oh no, when it's at nighttime, we become lonely. We become frightened like children. We sit and sob and gasp for more light. Okay, so what is the purpose here? To indicate that crowded areas can cause people to feel as though they are children again. Well, no, it's actually not crowded areas. It's actually the nighttime, and it's not about that. It's not about that. This is too much of a detail. B, I mean, are we talking about beauty? Are we talking about light? Are we talking about where we live? Are we talking about why we live there? So it's not really cautioning people to dismiss the natural beauty that can be found in rural areas. This is, again, not the purpose, nor is it the intention. C, okay, I mean, to address common traits that motivates many people to choose to live in urban environments. Well, do we have that? Well, yeah, that it's light and it's crowded, I think. That is why we crowd in towns and cities. Okay, right, because we love the light. And then it tells us why we also like the crowds in cities. Okay. And then we sit and sob along for gaslit streets and the sound of human voices. Okay, maybe. Answer D. Okay, people prefer hillsides? No. I mean, we enjoy hillsides because it's sunny. It's not because of any other reason. So I wouldn't say answer D. I'll go with answer C here to describe common traits that motivates people to choose to live in urban environments. What is the common trait? The light, right? The first half of the task, or the first three quarters half, is about us living in the light, why we love the light, why we live in cities. And then we have but here. Oh, the world seems so lonesome, and we get frightened like children in a silent house. We stand sob for gaslit streets. This is usually found in cities as well at this time period. So we'll go with answer C. Number 7, the main idea of the text. So usually with main idea, we want to find the topic, we want to find the focus. Those are connected. Okay, so the purpose is to describe a study and results. So here we have some background information. Sorry about that. And then what we believed about octopuses, right? So here they wanted to test whether this assumption was true. So this is the, I guess the research question. And then this is the research and the result that cuttlefish can see in 3D. A, cuttlefish eyes are more complex than those of falcons or horses. Actually, no, this is actually not true. They're believed to be like horses and falcons, so it's a bit too specific. Answer B. No, I mean, that's not the purpose of the text. This is probably true, right? But that's not the main idea. Don't confuse a detail for a main idea, because then the whole text will be about the glasses. Answer C. I mean, horses may not. I mean, we don't have any proof that Wardell thought this, that horses didn't have it. I mean, we have it in the beginning, stated in the beginning. So there's actually kind of a contrast. Answer D. The finding of Wardell's team study suggests, like falcons and horses, cuttlefish may also have 3D vision. Yeah, right. We're talking about the results. Like falcons and horses, we mentioned them in the beginning, and then we say, well, the results show that they too, the cuttlefish, can see like these falcons and horses. So here we're going to say answer D, number 8. Another main idea question. Okay, this is about Richard Nixon. There's a shift here. When you have a shift in ideas, keep in mind. So here we're talking about the bad things about Nixon. It was a scandal, convoluted tale, whatever. And then here is the good things about Nixon. So what is the main idea? Nixon is both bad and good things. Um, this is off topic because the focus is not about it's not about Chuck Colson and John Dean. It's about Nixon and his legacy. Okay, so Richard Nixon is linked with the infamous historical event, which is the first part, but this overshadows some of his notable achievements. This overshadows the bad event overshadows the good he did. So I like answer B. This is too specific and unsupported, right? Or yeah, I mean it's too specific. Although we do have a detail here, it's not all about his policies influencing people. Okay, his again, this is not a main idea as well, nor is it supported. Remember, main idea means all the details and sentences focus on that one idea. Question number 9. Okay, so Toomer uses figurative language to connect the narrator's urban environment of Washington, D.C. and the rural South of the narrator's past writing. So we want to connect these two things using figurative language. For example, simile or metaphor, um, personification, whatever it is, right? So we want to illustrate this claim. The problem with answer A, we're not connecting the urban environment of Washington, D.C. to the rural South. There's no connection there. Answer B. So answer B, do we have figurative language? Yes, we have a simile. Do we have a connection between the South and Washington, D.C.? Yes, right? The South, the soil of my homeland, falls like a fertile shower upon the lean streets of Washington, D.C. And this is what we want, a connection between these two, plus figurative language. Plus figurative language. Answer C, there's no connection between the two cities. Yeah, and so answer D only discusses Washington, D.C. There's only a half answer, and there is no figurative language in answer D as well. So here we're going to say answer B. Question number 10. So with these types of questions, which one would most directly support Bainbridge and colleagues' claim? Whenever you have a claim to do or logical conclusion to do, make sure you keep track of values and write them down. Because these types of questions have more than one idea, and sometimes these ideas are inverse to one another. Just be very careful there. So keep track of the values, right? And I'll show you what I mean by this. Okay, so it's about lullabies and they are soothing, right? This is value number 1. Okay, and idea number 2, these two people played a lullaby in the Western Nuttall language and in a non lullaby sung in Serbian, and a non lullaby sung in Serbian. Okay, and then number 3, heart rate. Reduced heart rate means they are calm. Okay, they claim that the lullaby did indeed relax infants. So, what do we want now before we even check anything? That means we're going to say, for example, when the lullaby was in the Western Nahuatl language, the heart rate of the baby went down, as opposed to the Serbian language, which did not. Okay, so let's check out our answer choices. So the heart rates were more irregular, but we want a lower heart rate, not an irregular heart rate. So regular could mean a lot of things, by the way. This doesn't work there. Answer B. Okay, but parents choose the lullaby. I mean, I don't care about the parents right now. What we care about is the information in front of us. We're talking about measuring heart rate. We're talking about the language. We're talking about Serbian. We're talking about, lullabies. So answer B, where do we discuss parents? Not there. No good. Okay, answer C, right? Infants' heart rates were lower during the lullaby, check, than during the non lullaby, check and check. Answer C, this supports the idea the lullaby calmed the babies. Answer D, I mean, it doesn't matter the sex of the singer, so that wouldn't really make too much sense. Question number 11. So we want to complete the text with data from the graph. Okay. So we're talking about businesses and with the revenue. Okay, in fact, when the tribe's activity is regarded as a single industry, its contributions to Oklahoma economy in 2017. Okay, so let's find true information now. So their tribal economic activity was surpassed that by administration and waste. Okay, was it more than administration and waste? Yes, right, 7 billion, 5 billion, but fell short of real estate. Real estate, okay, 18 billion. Yes, answer is A. Right, if you check the other answers, they don't match the graph. Right, exceeded the contribution made by administration, waste, and real estate. So it's telling us, answer B is telling us it was both, more than both of these. No. All right, and then was greater than real estate. No, because 718 was lower than administration. No, as well. So here we're going to go with answer A, number 12. Okay. So this type of question, like I told you, we need to keep track of the values. Without keeping track of values, you're going to have a bad time. So how do we keep track of values? You'll have a paper and pencil with you on test day, and so you just write like we did with the previous question, just very quick notes about, well, this could be correct or this could be incorrect because of this, that, or the other. So it's really important to keep track of values. Let's work on this together. Water flowing around obstruction creates vortices of varying sizes. By detecting the vortices, fish can determine the size and position of the obstruction. So we're talking about the vortices, which is like spinning water, right? So fish can determine the size of the obstruction, something that can stop them. So let's figure this out now. Testing, okay, by these people using three head shapes: narrow, intermediate, and wide. So let's write narrow, intermediate, and wide. So we have three values. High ratio of wide to length. Show that for large vortices, fish with intermediate heads will be better able than narrow. So let's say large vortices. The fish with intermediate heads will be better than the narrow to distinguish between vortices and general turbulence in water. A second team has therefore hypothesized that in low visibility conditions, intermediate headed fish will be more likely than narrow headed fish to detect obstructions and create large vortices. So here we just want to say the intermediate is better than the narrow at detection. So our answer needs to show this. Our answer needs to show this. So let's begin with answer A. Let's begin with answer A. So a study created large vortices, correct? In low visibility conditions. That's what we're talking about right now. That's what we're talking about. Found that narrow-headed lake sturgeon bumped into obstructions more often than the intermediate-headed dusky smooth hound did. Okay, so here's telling me the narrow was more than the intermediate in bumping into obstructions, which shows us that the intermediate is better than the narrow in avoiding them. So it's a flipped idea. So what's trying to tell us is, or in the text is telling us, the intermediate is better than the narrow in avoiding. So what does our answer say? Our answer says the narrow is or bumped into obstructions more than intermediate. It's the same thing. It's like saying, um, Joe is slow. Joe is not fast, right? Or it's like saying, let me give you a better example. Joe is faster than John. Do you see that statement? Also, you can say Joe is slower than John. Oh, excuse me. That's a terrible one. Uh, John, or you can say John is slower than Joe. You see how these are the same things? And answer A is basically telling us that same thing. Let's check the other answers too. Always check your answers. So answer B, it doesn't compare, and we're trying to compare the intermediate to the narrow. So although it's a half answer, it supports it to a degree, but it is a half answer. It's not a complete answer. So B is a no good answer. Answer C. So answer C, we're comparing the intermediate headed fish to other specimens. So also it's beyond the scope. And answer D. Okay, so answer D is like B, it's a half answer. It doesn't compare the intermediate to the narrow. So the best answer here would be answer A. Let's continue. Question number 13. Okay, so we want to support the student's claim. Let's check this out. Hmm. So we want to support the student's claim. So let's write these values down. So the student asserts that the increased traffic congestion in the 90s was present in large cities and smaller cities. So traffic congestion in large cities and smaller cities, such as this, and this. Though those smaller those smaller areas may have been less affected by traffic congestion than very large cities. The congestion also worsened over time. So in the smaller cities, it's less effect, right? But they became worse. And that's what we're going to be looking for in our answer choices, right? So they became worse. Less effect, but they became worse here. Annual average hours of highway traffic delay. Okay. So look at the smaller cities like Jacksonville, I think, Albuquerque, Boise, I guess that's what it's called, right? Um, okay. Hours of delay. 6 to 1. Okay, okay. So let me just see. Let's check our answers now. A doesn't show us it's getting worse. A shows us that it's actually kind of not bad. The amount of traffic delay was less than 20 hours. So this shows us it's not getting worse. So answer A is no good here. So we're going to eliminate answer A. It doesn't support the text that it is getting worse. Hmm. So while the annual number of hours of traffic delay per commuter was always lower in Boise than New York City, so Boise is the circle there, it's always been lower than New York City, right? So that's no doubt. Um, for each year between 1990 and 2000, the amount of traffic delay rose in both areas during this period. So, okay, so what is the claim? The claim is that it is getting worse, right? This congestion also worsened over time. So we're saying that the congestion in small towns worsened over time, and answer B tells us that. Answer B is telling us, well, although there's a comparison to New York, it's telling us that the traffic congestion is still getting worse in time. It's telling me that it rose in both areas at that time period, and this shows us that it is getting worse. It is getting worse. Here it's just telling us the amounts were nearly identical in 1996 between the traffic in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and than in New York City. I mean, it's actually not identical either. So answer C is inaccurate information. Answer D doesn't support the text. It could be true, and it's not true. It was telling us it's less than 30 hours per commute. It's not true. New York City is actually more than 40, excuse me, in 1992. It's actually about 45. So it's also non-factual information. False news. So here we're going to go with answer B. Let's continue. Another graph question. Okay. So let's support the information in the graph. Let's get this thing started. Okay. So all this background information, right? The researcher used these ratings to rank the services for each group with the conclusion that both stakeholders and the general public regard the improvement of attitudes and outlooks as important benefit of urban agriculture. So improved outlooks is an important element of agriculture. Improved attitude, I'm sorry, right? Or the improvement of attitudes and outlooks as important benefit of agriculture. So improvement of attitude and outlooks is for the benefit of urban agriculture. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Let's check out answer A. Let's get freaky deaky. The improvement of physical health was ranked lower for the general public than it was for I mean, we want attitudes and outlooks. Why are we talking about physical health? Confused here. Again, answer B kind of goes against it because we want to show the improvement of attitudes and outlooks, but answer B brings it in a way where it's secondary to raw materials. So answer B is no good. But again, look at answer C. It was ranked higher for stakeholders than the general public, and not true. False news. And answer D. So the improvement of attitudes and outlooks was ranked higher for the general public than were the other four services. Rank environmental scale 1 to 5. One is the highest. Don't oh, it is ranked the highest than the other four. Make sure you read this key right here. DSAT over here trying to trick people. So yeah, here number 14, we're gonna say answer D. Why? I mean, it's telling you that the public they viewed the improvement of attitudes and outlooks as the highest, and one is the highest, and so for them, four is the highest number of the other four. Whoa, my brew. Number 15. So logical conclusion: keep track of values. Make sure you keep track of values. Okay, so we're talking about dropping seeds. So the bulbul drops seeds. Okay, cool. And so they disperse some seeds, right? Okay. However, okay. So background information, the birds they eat seeds and they disperse seeds. Cool. And however, these birds now they use the jessamine shrub, let's say JS, and other non-native plants, right? More than the others, right? More than the others. Why? Because there's so many more. So now we have to think about it. So if the birds they eat lots of seeds, they eat lots of seeds. They disperse these seeds. And they eat specifically a lot of jessamine shrubs and non-native plants. So that means they're dispersing these seeds. So that means it's not surprising that the jessamine shrub and non-native plants probably took over the whole area, right? And right here, right, the rate of population increase is higher for non-native plants than it is for vulnerable native plants because the birds are eating these non-native plants and spreading the seed of these non-native plants. So therefore, it'd be logical that there's more non-native plants than native plants. Let's check out the other answers as well. Okay. I mean, there's no support for this. Only recently began to outnumber native plants. We actually don't know this. There's no support for this. It could be true, but there's no support. So answer C is not a logical conclusion we can make, because if the bulbul is eating these more than the others, then obviously they'll be more non-native than the lapa lapa tree. Now again, answer D could be true, but we don't know if they are becoming extinct because of the spread. So answer A is the best answer. Okay, we're gonna continue. Question number 16. Now I want you guys to realize too that it is a bit mixed sometimes because of the way it's organized, but no big deal, right? No big deal, I suppose. So number 16. Okay, so here it's describing creating a lasting historical legacy for herself. Almost nothing is more effective than being the first to do something, right? So she's not recognizing a lasting historical legacy. She did something. She wants people now to recognize her, right? Or to she wants to build something and create a legacy, right? Make a legacy. Undermine means to undercut. Constrain means to restrict, right? It's established. We're establishing the historical legacy. Question number 17. How would text 1 most likely respond to the argument presented in text 2? Okay, so let's find out these arguments. Let's find out these arguments. So make sure we keep track of values, right? So poets, I guess, can work anytime. Can work any time. Let's check out text number 2. Okay, so text two tells us, well, they can't really do anytime, or poets can't be anytime because they have to be professional. It's now a professional thing, and to be a professional costs time and it costs money, and so financial security is very important. So basically, you'll have to work a job. So how would text one respond to the argument in text two? Okay, we know they're a bit contrasting to each other. We know that they won't really agree to each other. Text one would probably say, nah, these poet bums don't need a job, right? By indicating that those poets who publish in major poetry journals are most likely to be able to earn a living by writing poetry. I don't see too much support for this in answer A. Are they most likely? They can create a living writing poetry? No, because text one, the main idea is that a poet can, or artists can work multiple jobs, must work multiple jobs. So to be an artist must work multiple jobs. But poetry, necessarily, you could do any time, unlike the other ones. Poetry doesn't require time. Poetry doesn't require effort. Poetry doesn't require an education, for example. Answer B, pointing out people can produce valuable poetry. So pointing out people can produce valuable poetry in other circumstances than those described by the author of text two. This is an interesting one. I do like answer B, but let me just check my other answers first. So those who specialize in more financially rewarding artistic forms are unlikely to be as successful as poets. Is off topic. We're not really discussing success, but more about contributions of art and financial reward. Enter D. By asserting that people often work full time jobs in order to afford the professional training described in text two. Technically, one would not respond to that argument because text two is saying we still need jobs. Text one is saying that, a poet can have a job. All these artists have another job, but poets can do it anytime. Okay, so poets can make worthwhile art even if they must earn their living in another way. So poetry can be done anytime, anywhere, unlike other forms of art. So answer D. It's not about working. So let's go back to answer B. By pointing out that people can produce valuable poetry in other circumstances than those described in text two. And text two is telling us, well, you need this, you need that, you need to be more professional. Even with all of this, okay, a poet can still make poetry in different situations. A poet does not just need to be a professional. You could be a professional poet and still not require time or effort to make poetry, allegedly. So I'll go with answer B here. It's a hard one. This is a hard one. So, like we said, answer B is a better answer because he's saying you can make poetry almost anywhere. You don't need all this time and effort and this and that. Let's go to the next one. The main idea of the text. Now, remember, main idea, we do the topic and we do focus. Okay, so here's telling us the Yellow Admiral looks like it's unfinished, but it's actually, the book is actually a part of a whole, and it's not unfinished if you see it in the whole series. We're not talking about popularity, eminence, or respect. This is off topic. Yeah, so we're gonna go with answer B, a certain understanding of the structures. And so the structures of the novels, what we're talking about is that the sudden ending is only an issue if one considers the books as independent texts. The Aubrey Maturin series is best thought of a single incredibly long work similar to other multi-volume stories. So if you understand the structure of the novels, then you understand that this one book is not incomplete, it's part of a series. Let's check out answer C. Again, this is not the main idea. Could be there, but it's not a main idea. It's a detail if it's there. They're the most complex of O'Brien's novels. Again, that's not the main idea, nor is it supported. We're going to go with answer B here. Let's go to the next question. Question number 19. This is fiction. So, like we said, in fiction, focus on the character, plus you're going to focus on events or traits or relationships. Read the blurb. Okay, so this is a really interesting um, text. It's actually pretty complex. So let's begin from here. The untaught peasant beheld the elements around him and was acquainted with their practical uses. Okay, so ignorant people understand the practical use of things. The most learned philosopher knew little more. Okay, about the elements around them. He had partially unveiled the face of nature, but her immortal lineaments were still a wonder and a mystery. So even if he tried to study the philosopher, she tried to study, it's still a mystery. He might dissect, anatomize, and give names, but not to speak of a final cause, causes in their secondary and tertiary grades were utterly unknown to him. Okay, so you might study it deeply, but to know a final cause would be basically unknown. Had gazed upon the fortifications and impediments that seemed to keep human beings from entering the citadel of nature, and rashly and ignorantly I had repined. So I guess repined here means unhappy, right? Unhappy. Okay. So unhappy about ignorance, I guess. Okay. Became disappointed signs when you realize that this practical knowledge lay people have of nature is often deeper. So the practical knowledge lay people have of nature is often deeper than the scientific understanding. I don't think you'll have a problem at lay people. Lay people are just the average people or the normal people. It's often deeper than scientific understanding. Also, it's a bit weird. I mean, so lay people have more understanding than scientific people, but why would P be disappointed? Really convoluted here. Answer B. Okay, so science provided a clearer understanding, but actually it tells us here that um, we still don't have full answers. So no, answer C. Unsupported, right? He's immediately impressed by the advantages of the scientific approach. Answer D is a bit vague here. Ooh, sometimes would help you a bit clearer. I'll go to answer D. Victor thinks conventional scientific approaches to understanding natural phenomena will not yield the answers he seeks, and it's actually here, right? But not to speak of the final cause. Causes in the secondary and tertiary grades were utterly unknown to him. So the scientist, he might do this, that, and the other, and so he might get a superficial cause. But now he tells us causes on the secondary or tertiary grades. That means higher level causes were utterly unknown, and so this part, the conventional scientific approach, which would be this, which would be this, is not enough. It's not enough. So answer D is the best answer. Let's go to the next one. A table to complete this statement. Okay. Okay, so we're asking about the species that seem least suited to a full migration to the mesophotic zone. And if we go to the mesophotic zone, it is a shallow zone that is less than 30 meters below the surface. It could take refuge in cooler, darker temperature, darker mesophotic zone. I'm sorry. Um, it's a 30 to 150 meters. So it's 30 to 150 meters. So which animal would be least suited to this? Which animal would be least suited to this in the mesophotic zone? And anything that cannot go to 30 to 150 wouldn't work out, right? Let's again. The questions ask us, or the statements telling us, based on the depths of which those corals are now found, the species that seems least suited to a full migration to the mesophotic zone. Okay. So many fish and corals found in the shallow zone, less than 30 meters, could take refuge in the cooler, darker mesophotic zone, 30 to 150. Okay. Cool, 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 cool. So I don't think any of them would work, right? 30 to 150, maximum depth, 80 to 15, maybe. This 80 to 25, not suited. This 80 to 128, not suited, because remember 30 is the minimum, and this can go as 80, so this is suitable. So Agricia indata, it's not even an answer. Yeah, this will be eliminated. So it's the PD, AE, PA. Okay, so the least suited of them all, the one that cannot do it at all, is the one with Pleurogyra discus. Because the question is not asking us which one is suited or unsuitable. It's asking us the least suited. That means the one that has the hardest time to go there. And so, this can only go to 15 meters. The mesophotic zone begins at 30, is so far away. 25 and 28 are at least closer to the 30-meter depth than um, the others. So here we're going to go with answer B. Let's go to the next question. Which one logically completes the text? Okay. So the Harlem Renaissance is thought to have ended in the 1930s after the Great Depression. Okay. Value number one, Harlem Renaissance is thought to have ended. Okay. Value number two, Harlem Renaissance did not really end. These scholars therefore suggest that, modern culture today is influenced by the Harlem Renaissance, right? This doesn't match our values. This doesn't match our values. So answer A is no good. If cultural movements were innovative, then it cannot sustain itself for a long time. But how does that, logically the text? We're talking about these scholars, the ones who believe that the Harlem Renaissance is not dead. Answer C, no. We're talking about death, if it's still around or not. Answer D. So if the influence of cultural movement continues, then in some sense the movement itself continues, right? Because we're talking about the Harlem Renaissance, and this is the influence of something. It's thought to have ended in the 30s, but they argue that the Renaissance never really ended today. So we need an answer that shows us it continues until today. You might not fully grasp the idea itself in answer D, but it's telling us that if there's still influence from that time period, then it's still around today, then the movement is still around. As long as it's still influencing people, then the movement itself is still around. We can't say it's dead. And so the Harlem Renaissance was or is or a movement. Okay. Logical completions, keep our values. So they're examining photographs, two-dimensional photograph. But a two-dimensional photograph cannot capture these things. An image of the forbidden city thus gives us a limited perspective. So it's telling us that, the photo doesn't show everything about this forbidden city. It doesn't show us everything that we need to know. And so if you take an image of the forbidden city, that means the photo won't show us all of the aspects of the city or aspects of the building. It serves to exaggerate the building's historical importance. No, right? We want to talk about how it's limiting building interaction, its surroundings, it's complementing, it's blending. Fails to convey the full impact of the building's design and structure. We're going to go with answer B here because you don't see the full impact of design and structure. You don't see how it interacts with other things. Answer C misrepresents how the building is perceived by people who have never visited. We're not talking about the perception of people, off topic, conceals the subtle deterioration of the building's materials. Again, this off topic. So here we're going to go with answer B. And finally, here, 23. So values studies can be done with relatively little money. For example, marketing study. Identify the average amount customers spend per annum. Okay, so it doesn't require. So a straightforward marketing study does not need money, right? Does not need years of collection data. Does not need years of collection data. But it's much more expensive to conduct a longitudinal study like the Household Income and Labor Dynamics in Australia survey, which looks at data of 20,000 people, 25,000 people in Australia to find trends in economic well-being that can take a long time to develop. So unlike a complex study, which requires lots of money, if it's a longitudinal survey. So longitudinal survey means like a survey that shows like the effect of different things on different people. This requires lots of funding because there's lots of data. Right? And it tells us that. It tells us that here the first study is cheap because it doesn't need data. So the second one is expensive because it needs lots of data, right? So marketing studies, this requires lots of funding because when we talk about this, we're talking about the HILDA. Marketing studies are not likely to require data on very many individuals. I mean, I guess maybe data from 25,000 people may not be enough to reveal significant trends in economic well-being. No, this is off topic. We'll talk about money. Why do we choose one over the other? Long-term trends in economic well-being are hard to find without collecting data over many years. We'll go with answer C. Our focus is data. One is more expensive than the other one because it takes many, many years to collect data on that thing. So this requires lots of funding because collecting data over many years. The more data you have, the more people you need, the more information you have to process, the more people you have to hire. So this was module 1. We'll go to module number 2.